doing? I'm going to Zoom.
Just so you know, when I get ready to speak, because you know how I put that little video showing the year in review, that'll be coming on, so you don't get shocked about that.
Okay, that's great. Oh, baby. Okay, there's Laura. I'll call this regular Board of Education meeting to order. I'll start by reciting our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Board Member Castro.
Thank you so much. I would like to read off our statement of remembrance for Sharee DeLong, followed by a moment of silence. So tonight, we'd like to ask for a moment of silence this evening for our district to recognize the passing of Sharee DeLong, who was a special education assistant at Lindbergh School. Sharee is remembered as someone who was a calm and quiet presence who loved serving and supporting students. Sharee's passing has taken a significant toll on our Lindbergh community, and we remember her tonight. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Sharee. Thank you.
just, yeah, okay. Okay. We have one in support of implementing district-wide programming that includes and educates students with IEP. There has been a great deal of improvement over the school year, but more still needs to be done. The district can start by giving special education assistants a $5 increase in base pay. One in support of providing staff with the full cost of living adjustment and the necessary increase in pay scales of SEAs, BEAs, and security assistants. One in support of the proposed 2022-2023 school year budget. One opposed to the retirees having to pay more for dental insurance. One in support of hourly employees receiving pandemic pay for their work in person during the September 2020 to March 2022 school year. I'm sorry. Oh, we do have some people online registered. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that, Jesse. Jesse will now take us through public comment and folks who are attending via Zoom.
Our first speaker is CZ Lee.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, 1%.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Right. Hello, everyone. I'm here. I'm a student from West High School, and I'm here at the school board meeting to address the issue that of course rigor at West High School. And here are my reasoning and observations. According to released data from the $74 million nationwide ACT scores reached a record low of 20.33 in the year of 2021, as it was already on a trend of decreasing even before the pandemic. At the same time, the high school GPA reached a record high also in the same year to 3.39. This is data from the past decade. Therefore, that it shows that there is a severe issue with great inflation. That the current GPAs does not represent the objective performance of students, and that's an issue because it will let the students to become overly confident in their in the fake number, in the overrepresented number given. Therefore, that if the course rigor in colleges aren't changed, that's not going to prepare them to be successful in their future. And there is also another issue that MMSD is trying to cancel honors in 9th and 10th grade. And that's going to be a problem at our instead it's going to worse the situation, because that at West, that if currently at West there are no strict deadline for students. Students can turn in their work late, and indeed that's what the student did. And that if the student can get an A without doing half the work, that's what the students are going to do. So these things are very concerning, and they must be addressed. And also the finals are cancelled, and replaced with a bridge week. And I think it needs to be restored, just like 2 years ago before the pandemic. Therefore, that I believe canceling honors is not going to be solving the problem. It's going to create more problems for the long term. And if we want to close the gaps between races, the racial disparity, that the district should be aiming for more programs such as encouraging the minorities to enroll in difficult course to high quality courses, and West indeed had such programs encouraging students of color to take AP courses, and couldn't that also apply to honors? So that is my suggestion, and also the opinion of many students I have talked to in the school, and therefore I believe it's not going to solve any problems if the district cancel honors, and the district should consult more student and parents' opinions before making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Stephen Blue.
Good evening, MMSD Board of Education. I'm speaking tonight as a Madison MMSD grad, MMSD employee, and a person that cares deeply about kids in this community. I'm also writing you tonight on behalf of Justin Kearney, or Mr. K as the kids call him. Justin was the social worker at Frank Alice Elementary School for about 10 years until earlier this month. I worked with Justin for about 10 years as both a colleague and a supervisor. During that time, I watched Justin build countless relationships with students and families in the community. The relationships I saw Justin build with families stretched way beyond the walls of the school and well past 5th grade when students left Alice. During the time we worked together, I would frequently see Justin out in the community at sporting events, performances, and graduation ceremonies of former students. When COVID hit in March of 2020, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the world and a lot of fear around the virus, Justin was the first person that jumped up and helped organize a mobile food pantry for the Southdale neighborhood. And that food pantry during COVID was responsible for serving over 500,000 pounds of food to our students and families. The strategic framework goal number 2 is to make every school a place where children, staff, and families thrive. And to do that, you need people like Justin staffing our schools. These can just be words until we have people that are actually putting these things into place. So I'm advocating tonight for Justin to be rehired by MMSD. I've been a firsthand witness of Justin's character and the quality of work that he's done in MMSD. When I think of what a social worker is supposed to be and what they're supposed to do, Justin does all those things and more. I've never worked in my life with a more qualified or caring social worker. And if I had the opportunity again, I would hire Justin in a heartbeat. Thank you for your time tonight.
Next, we have Ray Mendez.
Thanks. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to advocate for our kids with special needs in this forum. I've submitted what I'm going to read in the form of a letter. Also submitted it earlier today because it's quite dense. I represent many of the parents of the 4,000 kids with IEPs at MMSD. We are focused on the kids who are some of the most marginalized in our schools and communities. Children who use wheelchairs, children with autism, and children with mental health needs. Many of these children are from lower income families. This includes children of color and specifically historically marginalized African American children. We've heard and expressed belief by MMSD leaders that special education is historically rooted in racism, and we agree. However, we will not accept the paradigm of only focusing on disproportionality while sidelining the special education programming. Without presenting district-wide improvements alongside the work in regards to disproportionality, many children and families are further being marginalized and hurt. We acknowledge that Student Services has made recent improvements for many of our children. We appreciate the anti-racist IEP. We are grateful for the dedicated special ed staff on the ground who care for our kids, many of whom lift much more than their fair share. However, there is still an enormous amount that needs to be done to improve the lives of all our students with disabilities, many who are suffering because of systemic neglect. Student Services must have a seat at every decision-making table. I have some questions which I would appreciate the answers to through an email or an in-person meeting. What evidence-based district-wide programs are currently being utilized to include and educate students with disabilities, and how are they performing? And I mean district-wide programs. What new funding is allocated to the 22-23 budget to evidence-based district-wide solutions for including and educating students with IEPs? Why are there no ESSA funds being allocated to special education or IEP needs in the third round of the ARPA funds, since community feedback showed that this was a priority area? Why isn't attention being paid to the lack of funds and training for SEAs? What is your protocol for including Student Services when making decisions that affect children with disabilities? A last question, how are the voices of families with children who have disabilities been centered when making decisions that will affect them? So those questions I would really appreciate an answer to through email or in-person meetings, if that's possible. What we are advocating for: 1, Student Services representation at every single MMSD leadership meeting that impacts our children. 2, restore allocation from the third round of ARPA funds to help special education and general education staff learn how to include and educate students with and without IEPs in the general education setting. This includes adequate staffing, additional training opportunities for staff, and adequate time for collaboration between program support teachers, cross-categorical teachers, general education teachers, related services staff, and special education assistants. 3, additional funding and active support to extend the use of the Program for Inclusion and Neurodiversity Education called PINE, an evidence-based program which has proven successful at Randall and Franklin. And last, a $5 increase in hourly pay for our special education assistants, SEAs, as well as additional funding for training and compensation for shared collaboration time with case managers. I hope my advocacy influences how you modify the interim budget this evening. I would like some form of feedback or dialogue and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth O'Leary is next.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Can you all hear me okay? Awesome. My name is Elizabeth O'Leary and I'm a teacher at Frank Alice Elementary. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and a large group of present and former MMSD staff who are devastated by the termination of Justin Kearney as our social worker at Frank Alice Elementary. Earlier today, I sent you all, along with MMSD leaders, an email regarding this wrongful termination that included many signatures, along with testimonial letters from those staff. Justin Kearney has worked at Frank Alice for 11 years. His impact on our community is unmatched. He steps up to the plate each day, whether it be conducting a restorative conversation with students, having difficult conversations with our families, or like the past month he did at school, riding the bus to and from school after an incident that occurred. The list could go on forever. He is a fierce defender of anti-racism in our schools and has supported me, along with others, of how racism manifests in ourselves and our systems. He's not afraid of the tough conversations because he believes that each student deserves our best. Our community is devastated by this loss. And to be honest, most of our students don't even know that he's not coming back. It breaks my heart having to think of the conversations I will have to have next year when they walk by his office and don't know where he's asked. This year, I asked each scholar in my class who were their trusted adults. It was an MMSD provided lesson, and almost every single student in my class listed Mr. K in their top 5. That's powerful data right there of how much he impacts our community. This termination feels personal to me, and to be honest, it has sent a shockwaves through our staff. Justin always puts students and family first. What possible mistakes could he have made to have granted this serious of a decision? How could we possibly afford to lose a person who has given their life to make our school a better place? I don't know if we will find a candidate to live up to the standard that Mr. K has set, or find a quality candidate at all. He is irreplaceable, and he did not want to leave. This termination is making me question my longevity at Frank Alice and in MMSD. I'm really just at a loss. I just want to express lastly the gravity of losing such a strong public servant such as Justin. In a time where we are losing staff every other day, left and right, and begging people to work in our schools, how could we possibly let this man go from MMSD? I hope that we can work together to do what needs to be done to find him a position in our district. Our students and our community deserve his work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jennifer Greenwald.
Hi, I'm a homegrown MMSD teacher. Hi, Lavinia. I earned my certification at UW. I student taught at Midvale Lincoln. I've been teaching in the district since 1997. My daughters are MMSD alumni. There are many dedicated educators in MMSD and many leaving. I'm here to discuss my resignation. I am not resigning because of the kids. Sorry. The kids are why I have stayed and who I have fought for. The kids have pushed me to strive to always do better. The kids have helped me grow in innumerable ways, and the kids have brought me tremendous joy, and I will miss the MMSD kids terribly. I am resigning because you continue to make policies that contradict your stated goals. It is not anti-racist to treat everyone as if they have the same interests, strengths, and needs. It reinforces racist ideas when you measure success using standardized tests that grew out of the eugenics movement, and yet a record amount of testing has been added in the past few years. You reinforce the status quo and crush freedom dreams when you track students from kindergarten on, even when you call it clustering. It isn't culturally and historically responsive to focus narrowly on skills and ignore what Dr. Goldie Muhammad calls identity, intellectualism, criticality, and joy. It's paradoxical to bring Dr. Bettina Love to inspire us all about abolitionist teaching and then adopt policies that rely on high stakes testing, large classes, and rote learning, all things that contradict Dr. Love's ideas. I'm resigning because as MTI has pointed out, you continue to undervalue staff. Yes, financially, and also by undermining our professional autonomy. I'm resigning because I cannot stomach another handbook meeting where the Human Resources Department makes unkept promises, makes contradictory statements as a matter of course, and gaslights staff at every opportunity. I am resigning because next year, elementary staff will use scripted curricula in reading, math, and science if we're lucky enough to have time to teach science, and where somehow lecture is considered an appropriate model for teaching young students. I'm resigning because monolingual English-speaking third graders will take at least 10 standardized tests, including ANET, FastBridge, Bridges, and Forward. Students who are lucky enough to speak more than one language will also take the Access battery of tests. I have tried over the years to advocate for teaching policies that are creative and inclusive, that reflect student voice and choice, and that encourage professional teachers to co-create curriculum with their students. In spite of what you say publicly, you spend my taxpayer dollars on scripted, standardized rote curricula and testing instead of well-rounded, engaging, authentic, differentiated, and relevant lessons. I'm resigning from MMSD, but I am not quitting teaching, nor am I giving up the fight to build public schools that encourage creative, critical thinking. schools that celebrate each student's unique gifts and talents, and joyful schools where teachers and students work together to make the world better. I know, board members, you work hard. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, we have Blair Feltham.
Hi. Powerful from Jen. I'm Blair. I live on the east side. I work at West. I'm an MTI member. And I had an abortion. So first thing, learning is always personal and interpersonal. Schools are inherently social institutions. This stuff is complex, uncertain, challenging by nature. And there's not a way around that. But to improve it, it requires careful attention and space. And what could that look like to give that juicy interpersonal stuff, that teaching and learning stuff, attention and space? It could look like additional prep weeks, like a lot of additional prep time. It could look like a more flexible schedule, daily schedule, which, by the way, we have asked at the high schools for a more flexible schedule every single year since 2018, and have gotten turned down every single time. It's possible to do better, but we shouldn't try and automate it. There's this trend right now in trying to like automate or like efficient size that juicy work, that teaching and learning. But it's not desirable and it's not actually possible. And we should be skeptical when people try and say that it is possible or desirable or simple. We should be skeptical when people say that we can buy a module or an assessment or a report that can address that. What we should be doing is investing in the intellectual capacity, right? Like how much time and space and support do people have to think about what's happening in their classroom, right? That's the real work, is the professionals who are saying, okay, what's happening in my classroom and how do I support my students to get to where they need to go? But that's an investment in people in a meaningful way. And we're not really doing that. And failing to provide full COLA and just wages for hourly workers is one example of the way that we're failing to do that. That's my first point. My second point is last week, SCOTUS, like the Yiddish curse there, overturned Roe v. Wade, which you all know. But I didn't get an email from my employer about it at all. Which is hurtful to me. Typically when there's bad national news, we get an email about it, that we understand that it's affecting people in Madison, and that we support the people who it's impacting. And we didn't get anything like that, which is a problem for me. But you're not powerless here, which I think is great, because I think there's a lot of feelings of powerlessness going around. So here's what I think that you can and should do as the BOE and Dr. Jenkins as the superintendent of MMSD is work to develop a leave bank, not personal leave, not my sick days or someone's sick days, but a separate leave bank. And we have a precedent for that. We have separate bereavement leave that doesn't come out of your sick time. We should work to develop a leave bank and a benefit package that could include a travel stipend or something like that for employees who need to travel out of state to have an abortion. And I also think that you should develop policies for students that explicitly spell out the supports that they can expect to stay on top of their schoolwork, or we have all these like grading memos and stuff. And I don't have like specifics about how it could look, but I want to see from us like an explicit policy for a student who needs to travel out of state to have an abortion, that we have on the books clear routines and policies and procedures about how we support that student to miss potentially 3 or 4 days of school without that impacting their ability to continue on in school. Thank you very much.
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated May 23rd, 2022.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Do we have our, Lavinia, can I have your advisory vote?
I give you my advisory vote.
Thanks, Lavinia. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to the board president's announcements. Celebrating our students, rising sophomore at West High School, Anna Seberg is one of only 53 middle and high school students exhibits nationwide selected to participate in the 2022 National History Day contest with the theme Debate and Diplomacy in History. Successes, failures, consequences. She's also the only scholar representing the state of Wisconsin. Seberg's exhibit debating primary elections, Robert M. La Follette's fight against government corruption was featured in a visual Smithsonian exhibit showcase June 13th to June 27th. Across the United States, more than 2,600 high school seniors were named National Merit Scholarship recipients, including 3 MMSD graduates. Students will receive annual scholarship funds for up to 4 years towards their college education. MMSD students include Reagan Banazak from Memorial High School, Soren Calderu from West High School, and Thadvita Johnston from Memorial High School. Celebrating our staff, we are excited to welcome many great principals to MMSD next school year. This includes 7 administrators who served in an interim capacity last year and have been named to a permanent leadership position, and 7 administrators who have been hired from within MMSD. Thank you for your commitment to ensuring every school will be a thriving school. Celebrating our community, on behalf of the Board of Education, we acknowledge June as Pride Month, recognizing the impact and contributions of the LGBTQI+ community has locally, nationally, and globally. June is a time to celebrate and demonstrate support for our LGBTQIA+ community, raising awareness and promoting an inclusive and welcoming community for all. Additionally, we acknowledge June 19th as Juneteenth, a federally recognized holiday, as a time to celebrate African American contributions, reflect on our nation's commitment to liberty and equality, and honor the brilliance, creativity, and capability and bright futures of our Black children and youth.
The MMSD Board of Education believes strongly that a central aim of education is self-determination. Pursuant to that, we strive to embed principles of consent, bodily autonomy, and taking care of one's complete health. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade is in direct contradiction to those principles. On that day and henceforth, we will affirm our efforts to realize a reality of self-determination for every individual and educate scholars who will change our country for the better.
Thank you, Board Vice President Maya Pearson. We'll move on to the superintendent's announcements.
Thank you so much for those comments, Chair Muldrow and Vice Chair, also Pearson. At this particular time, I would like to share the video with everyone in terms of where we've been this year, some of the things that we've accomplished. And I think if you just bear with me for a moment, you will see some real successes during this year. Before we get into the real budgetary discussion here, I would like to share this video. So at this time.
Hello and welcome to the 21-22 school year. I am so excited about this school year and our opportunity to work collaboratively to make a difference. Being an educator is an awesome responsibility, and we all have the tremendous opportunity to make a difference. I want to thank you for your continued support of the student, staff, families, and community members of MMSD.
We're adapting to those safety protocols and we're ready to get it going. I mean, it's going to be different, but we're ready for it.
Well, here at school, we have to wear our masks in the building. It's a really easy thing to do. Get vaccinated if you feel like that's safe, and if not, wear a mask.
To counter the division and the distance, jazz brings them together. Each Thursday morning, as their classmates roll in, student musicians perform a few numbers. The students and their two guests.
And I just want to say thank you to the entire Madison community. The way you responded when we made a call to get volunteers in our buildings. We have a couple thousand volunteers now.
The Madison School District took some time to recognize, acknowledge, and think about the history of the Ho-Chunk people and the land base that they occupied, that it is our ancestral land of the Ho-Chunk people.
This was something that was long overdue, the acknowledgement of our indigenous people. And today we brought together many people, very diverse group, elders. We had community leaders, city leaders, we had various school board members, our board chair was here to speak.
The special thing about this event is that it was student-led. This idea bubbled up from our kids, and we always encourage them to lend their voice because this is their school district. We want them to feel like they're included in everything that happens here. They have a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership.
by doing everything with a purpose.
I want them to think about moving with a purpose, and we're doing everything for a purpose, and that warm-up sets up our success.
Or as Slumkus likes to say, move with efficacy.
Kind of a lesson that whatever you do, just do it with a purpose, and then you'll be successful within whatever you do.
Or also advice for life.
This is about something bigger than just what we just accomplished here, but this is also a microcosm of what it can be outside of here as well too, and that you can take that with you.
It's an annual tradition for students participating in a college readiness program through the Boys and Girls Club and MMSD. Organizers say the ceremony is about giving students a moment of recognition as they take on their future.
My name is Estrella and I'm attending Bradley University.
A declaration to give voice to their success.
To let everyone know, so they know it's real, that they are coming.
My name is Diana and I'll be attending Madison College.
Dozens of Madison School's seniors announcing their plans to attend college before an audience of family and supporters.
It's a day where they kick down the doors and the barriers that have been in front of them, and they announce to the world that they're prepared to be successful.
The Madison Metropolitan School District honored students at the first ever Breakfast with Champions this morning. The event recognized students who showed commitment and excellence in co-curricular activities during the school year. Superintendent Dr. Carlton Jenkins stopped by to congratulate the students.
I'm looking forward to the wonderful things that you're going to continue to do in our school and beyond. I talked to a number of you. You told me what your next steps are going to be. And that's awesome, because in our district, we're serious about students graduating, being prepared for college or the community. And that's your choice. Follow your passion.
The honored students participated in activities like athletics, forensics, and the arts.
Wow. Thank you to all the staff that put that video together, because it really kind of culminated what we experienced this year. This year has been a very different year, the past 27 months in the pandemic, but I also say it's been some wonderful things that we've experienced. One of the things I would like to highlight the fact that we've come together, more so, I would say, than before the pandemic. We're beginning to see not only the whole child, but the whole family and the whole community. And that's what we need. And in order to do that, and to give the level of experiences that we had, look at that, moving with purpose, with efficacy. Look at our kindergarten students starting off to school, and they were walking in, and everybody was so happy. Students talking about the mask, and just students being a part of the community. And we want our students to do that. The Breakfast with the Champions, amazing. The students on the tech team, amazing. I can go on and on and on. National Merit semifinalists. I want to remind us, we are Madison. We have some expectations. That success is not just every now and then. Success is every day. But we had to also face this reality that we've been in a pandemic for the last 27 months. And we are emerging out of it better. We will be ready come the fall. And in order to do that, we have to continue on our quest to put together a budget that reflects our values. It's been challenging to look at a budget and to think about our most vulnerable students coming in on a referendum, talking about our historically excluded groups, the African American, the Latinx, our students who are ELL, students who receive services for special needs, LGBTQIA, our students who are most vulnerable. We have to come together, this board, listening to the community, charging administration, but how are we going to put together a board that reflects our values? And here we are. And I love the speakers who came today. We have to have some accountability in this together. And we are. We are going to be accountable together. So I have spoken on it and will speak on it again. I think Roe v. Wade, it's not just an issue for women. It's an issue of human decency. Human growth and development, we have to continue to make sure that everyone has decisions, but yet everyone must remain humane in what we're doing. Tonight's budget reflects the opportunities we're trying to give to our students in many ways. We're coming off the heels of Juneteenth. Just think about it. That's not long ago. I'm 5 generations from a slave. Okay? And so there are other individuals in our community who are even shorter than that. But look at the progress we're making. This, when we come together as a district, we have to think about how are we reflecting our values. And tonight, you'll see how we'll continue to put students at the center of our work to accelerate learning for everyone. Every child. It doesn't matter. When you come to our district, this is where we stand. You're going to see a budget that stands up in the midst of not receiving any funding, a 0-0 from our state. We put together a budget that still reflects and values our staff. Currently, you're looking at 4.7 for many districts around. This board stepped up and worked with us to get to a point where we're offering 3% just up front, and we're maintaining our commitment to steps and lanes. So some will see an average of 5% increase and others slightly more. But this is about our values because we know our scholars need staff. And we're showing our staff that we're committed to them, even in tough fiscal times. In this particular budget, you're going to see us continue with our priorities around trying to retain staff. And we're continuing to be a district that's one of the leaders in the state when it comes to graduation rate at 85%, students going to college 8% higher than the state average. You're going to see that we're creating these opportunities. We're investing $6.5 million just right off the bat in our student support services for social, emotional, mental health concerns. You're going to see in this budget our opportunity to expand what we want to do around the arts. In this particular budget, we're going to say we're keeping our commitment to 4K expansion. We know that this is critical as we're looking at not just looking at the gaps as individuals have talked about, and we're talking about human decency. We know if we get them early, we train them well, we can help them later on in life. This is why this board has supported unanimously the adoption of the 2 curricula, the most complex recommendation and act, an investment we have not made in MMSD in over 23 years. To say the least, unanimous to bring in EL and to also bring in benchmarks. This is significant because it's coming right on the back of our district staff embracing the science of reading, knowing how important that is. And it's not just reading in elementary, it's early literacy and beyond, which will translate into other investments we're making in other areas. When you look at the middle schools and you think about our world language. We're a very large district, second in the state, but we have a number of offerings for our scholars We have a number of professional opportunities. Recently, we sent our contracts out and we had a rate of 98% of our staff turned in their contracts. But it's not lost on us that we need to do even more to support our staff so that we can have a better staff. And we need to work together to continue to try to realize our strategic framework goals. That not only are our students graduating from high school, ready for college, careers in our community, and the community part is big so that they can be good citizens. That's where we are. Tonight's budget, I think it's a real success story. It's something to get excited about. In my time, prior to COVID, and I've been around, this is a very exciting budget. I want to thank the taxpayers because had it not been for that historic referendum, the investment that you've made, go around, ride around, and you'll see all these playgrounds going in. You'll see the various things in our buildings from a mechanical standpoint being taken care of. We want to thank the taxpayers. That historic referendum, you gave us a kickstart. Had we not had that historic referendum, we would have been in some serious trouble this year and years to come. What you're going to see is a fiscally responsible budget that when the cliff hits, and it will hit, if we do not change the way that we think about education in the state of Wisconsin for every child, it will hit and we will fall. But we're being fiscally responsible with the things that we're doing and putting it in our budget that we can manage. And we're prepared to make tough decisions coming down the road. We're here together. We're in this together. And I ask that you support us in this work that we're trying to do. In this, the board has asked us to go in the community, get the feedback, and we've been getting feedback from you, and we listen to you. We don't have all the money to do everything, but we try to stay very close to our priorities that we've been espousing, and we want to continue to try to do all that we can to get it done in the upcoming year. I'm very excited as your superintendent to say to you, we're presenting you a budget tonight. Yes, there are more that we can do, but when you look at it and you think about balancing, this is one that is pretty serious. As we work together, we're not just building momentum anymore. Okay, we're ready to move forward in the fall. Thank you so much, Chair Muldrow and all the board members for this opportunity.
We're going to move on to reports that are proceeding through the instruction work group held on June 6th, 2022. Board Member Castro.
Thank you so much. So this month we discussed our academic year in review, including a new literacy adoption, investment in full day 4K, and updates to date on full day 4K. We also talked about social and emotional health supports and engagement this year. We also had an update on the Madison Virtual Academy. We then talked about a few policy updates, including BEP updates that we will return to. We also talked about a new policy that will allow middle schoolers to take on high school coursework for more rigor. And finally, Title IX updates that we will vote on tonight. We then talked about two high intensity partnerships between AVID and the Early College STEM Academy, and extending those partnerships that we will also vote on tonight. And then on August 1, our next instruction work group meeting, we will talk about and review the strategic framework data and an academic plan update.
Thank you so much, Board Member Castro. We will now move to reports and items that proceeded through the operation work group held on June 13th, 2022. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Thank you, Board President Muldrow. For our June 2022 operations work group meeting, we had 3 agenda items: a continued discussion for the preliminary 2022-23 budget in preparation for tonight's budget vote, presentation on the Village Builders program funded through one-time ESSER funds that will be added for the 2022-23 school year, and an update on the work of our Human Resources Department on staffing issues. With preliminary budget discussions, we also discussed several board amendment proposals to the budget. And as a reminder, these included an expansion of driver's education training, the addition of a district level athletic director, and the addition of a multilingual services director to coordinate our ELL department. Incorporating these into the 2022-23 budget is still a work in progress, and the board will continue to be updated as we move forward toward the final budget vote in October. Explanations about board member proposals related to staff compensation and a bonus structure were also provided. And the action item for tonight is the board vote on the preliminary 2022-23 budget. Our next operations work group meeting will be on Monday, August 8th, and potential agenda items include a discussion of the board's approach to policy work for 2022-23 that we discussed at the board retreat, specific policies needing board approval, an update on school safety, and summer progress on the referendum projects.
Thank you, Board Member Gomez-Schmidt. We'll now move on to action items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on June 6, 2022. I move that the Board of Education approve a one-year extension of the Memorandum of Agreements for a high-intensity partnership with Achievement via Individual Determination AVID, Teens of Promise TOPS College Club to be carried out with the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting, June 27th, 2022. Second, Board Member Vandermeulen, any discussion? Board Member Castro?
Sorry, I meant to vote aye.
Oh, you're, okay. Lavinia, your advisory vote?
I give you my advisory vote.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve a one-year extension of the Memorandum of Agreements, the Memorandum of Agreements, the MOA between the Madison Metropolitan School District and Madison College to implement the Early College STEM Academy as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated June 27th, 2022.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Second, Board Member Vandermeulen. Lavinia, your advisory vote?
I give you my advisory vote.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Laura. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve revisions to Board Policy 3541, enrollment and credit for middle school students taking high school courses as set forth in the documents prepared for the June 27th, 2022 regular board meeting. Seconded by Board Member Nichols. Lavinia, your advisory vote?
I give you my vote.
Thank you. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that I support these changes that take basically the necessity for a parent to initiate the action of getting this course credit approved, and instead it will just be a general process that we do. One of the questions I have is that there is some language in here regarding a parent or guardian requesting to remove a grade from a transcript from middle school, and that the request for removal must take place no later than a certain time. I'm wondering what the sort of the implementation timeline will be for this, because there are going to be some students where there's going to be some overlap until people understand what the process is, and it's going to be showing up on transcripts without people necessarily knowing by a deadline.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Good evening. So there is a procedure that our high school counselors follow for any student that sorry, I got confused. There is a procedure that our high school counselors follow, and families are able to notify the high school counselors of having it removed. I want to provide one clarifying component. For the new policy, no grade goes on the transcript, nor is the GPA factored in. It is only the course. There are times still where a family may choose to not have the course added at all, and we can do edits all the way up through their final transcript time in senior year. And there's a process and a procedure that all of our high school counselors follow and are aware of. And that will also be in the letter. We send a letter home to families every year when kids are in those courses at middle school, explaining that as well. But it is allowed to happen throughout their high school experience.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve the changes to the behavior education plan for elementary, middle, and high school levels, policies 4502B, 4502C, 4502D, as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated June 27th, 2022. Second, Board Member Nichols. I see Chris's hand for comment.
Yeah, I was just wondering, just wanted to request that Sharee explain a little bit why we're changing the language of this before we vote.
The language change is due to the change in the Title IX regulations. And when we made the changes to our Title IX policy, we did not update the BEP at that time. It is imperative that our policies match any state or federal regulations, and that is the impetus for these changes.
Vinia, your advisory vote?
I give you my vote.
All those in favor, aye. Motion carries 7-0. The school district budget represents the commitment of resources and priorities. Tonight, we are voting on a budget that represents our priorities and commitment to early literacy, expanded 4K programming, increasing the need to address the health and well-being of our scholars and staff. In the midst of escalating inflation and 2 years of a global pandemic, school districts continue to work to serve our community and keep the promises made to the public following 2 successful referendums. In addition to the trust the public has placed in our district, this budget includes over $41 million of one-time funding from federal ESSER awards. We aspire to use these funds to address the needs of our schools, to provide additional learning opportunities, mental health services, and other surge funding strategies to use this money for the purpose it was intended. In this budget, we must acknowledge the lack of state support for operating resources for school districts. The 2021-2023 state budget did not include any inflationary increase in the revenue limit, which has caused the district to make some difficult decisions on how to fund our priorities and still provide a wage adjustment for all staff. This proposed budget includes a 3% adjustment for all staff in addition to the existing salary schedule, steps, and lanes adjustment. As we look to the next state budget, we must call on all state representatives to do right by local public schools and work together for a more robust funding model for K-12 education. After a global pandemic and the highest inflation in 40 years, Wisconsin scholars deserve more. Tonight, the Board of Education will vote on the preliminary budget for 2022-2023. The The budget vote approval is meant to lay out the district's operating budget until all final information is available October of this year. Any final adjustments will be made and voted on in October. Final 2020, 2022, 2023 budget. Motion, I move that the Board of Education approve and adopt the 2022-2023 preliminary budget as proposed in the total amount of $621,370,969 or $561,326,152 net interfund transfers, inclusive of Fund 10 General Fund, 27 Special Education Fund, 30 Referendum Debt Service, 39 Non-Referendum Debt Service, 41 Capital Maintenance Fund, 50 Food Service Fund, and 80 Community Service Fund, with said proposed budget having been identified in the documents entitled DPI Preliminary Budget Adoption Format dated June 27th, 2022.
Second.
Second, Board Member Pearson. Any discussion? Board Member Vandermeulen.
I preface this by saying the following. I respect my board. I respect the work that has been put into this document. But I can't go so far as to say it represents our values. I wish I could. I understand that the state has put no money into education. Unfortunately, the state hasn't put money into education in a number of years. I am furious, hurt, and depressed by that issue. However, we were aware of it. 2, anything less than 4.7 is a pay cut. Plain and simple, when you come up with the cost of inflation, it ends up becoming a pay cut. We're going to discuss bonuses later. They're out of $1,000 bonus, we're spending almost $3 million on bonuses, which is up for a vote. Yet these bonuses are over $3 million, but we can't use that to pay our staff for a full COLA. I just can't see that as right. I try to take my role models from all walks of society and all walks of life, cartoon and otherwise. In this case, I take it from Master Yoda. When you have a decision, it's either do or not do. There is no try. In this case, not passing a 4.7 COLA means we are not representing our staff to the best of our ability, and therefore I will be voting no on this budget.
Any further discussion or questions for Ross, who's joined us? Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
I'm just wondering if Ross had a few comments to provide.
I do. Thank you for that. A lot of what we've heard tonight from Dr. Jenkins and Board Chair Muldrow is accurate. I do have some comments I'd like to make, though, just in regard to the
Ross,
state.
can you bring your mic a little bit closer?
Sorry about that. Let me move my computer. There we go. I do have a couple of comments that I want to raise just to speak to the current state of not only the state budget, but our current budget. So yes, tonight we're voting on the 22-23 budget. Over the last year, I've outlined the factors that have impacted our 22-23 budget development. This is the first time since the beginning of revenue limits in the early 90s that a 2-year state budget includes no increase to the revenue limit in both years. The last 2 years have also been challenging during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many school districts experience as much as a 5% reduction in enrollment. At the same time, school districts are adapting to what has become a flurry of one-time resources in acknowledgement of how public education has been impacted since March of 2020. This budget includes over $41 million of funding for strategies to address learning and mental health needs of our students, as well as other infrastructure and support services. These one-time investments are designed to keep the district moving forward without state investment in our primary source of funding. Despite this budget sustains our staffing model and includes the largest investment in our staff in over 10 years. We've liquidated existing debt and challenged state calculations for categorical aid programs to ensure this budget is balanced. We also owe thanks to our community for passing our 2020 operational and capital maintenance referendums. Were it not for this operating referendum, our revenue limit calculation in total would decrease by almost $6 million, making our current compensation strategy impossible. As we look forward to future state budgets, all eyes will be on our state representatives to identify how districts are supposed to navigate the highest inflation in over 40 years. The current state budget used the ESSER funding stimulus programs to sustain investments in K-12 funding instead of making local investments in the state revenue caps. Some districts have already used this funding to balance their budgets for 22-23. Most recently, our colleagues in Green Bay are now projecting a projected $36 million deficit after ESSER funding is gone in 24-25. As we plan future budgets at MMSD, I'll continue to identify the information we're getting from the state that will guide how we plan for 23-24 and beyond. I'm appreciative of all the work this team has put into budget development this year, and I look forward to working with you on many more budget cycles. And with that, I would entertain any other questions you may have.
Thank you so much for those comments, Ross. I want to thank you and Board Member Gomez-Schmidt for the conversations that you've led around this budget. I also want to acknowledge that we just spoke to giving folks a 3% increase in their cost of living, which is not 4.7%. It is the highest increase that the board has given folks in a number of years. And I guess my question is, how are we able to do that sustainably and responsibly without engaging in the same kind of deficit spending you're talking about is happening from our colleagues in Green Bay who are kind of anticipating a funding cliff?
So going into the second year of a state budget, we're used to knowing more information than being in the first year of a state budget. For next year, we know we're still dealing with declining enrollment, but through some actions we took earlier this year, we are identifying additional authority in the revenue limit from paying off existing debt, as well as working with the DPI to identify categorical aid programs that were incorrectly calculated. So because of those two measures primarily, as well as the authority that was given to us in the 2020 referendum, we were able to achieve the 3% sustained going into next year. Beyond this year, we are going to be looking very carefully and watching for any and all information from our state legislators on what the state budget will bring. I certainly do not want to see another 0-0 budget, especially given the current state of inflation and the current economy that we're all living in right now. But for this point, I can say for certain that our budget is balanced going to next year and we're not engaging in deficit spending going into next year.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Ross. And the last thing I want to say is I greatly appreciate that our budget is a moral document. It shows what we care about. And I believe that our budget shows that we have prioritized compensation for our educators to the greatest possible extent, given the reality of our circumstance in terms of our budget. I also think our ability to prioritize our hourly wage earners and making sure that folks have a living wage is something we will continue to work towards moving up to our October vote. I want to thank you for prioritizing full day 4K, Dr. Jenkins, for prioritizing the arts in this budget and for prioritizing the mental health and well-being of our young people. I think that this board has gotten behind, those investments strategically and thoughtfully. I think this budget represents $15 million of investment in our HVAC. I think we're doing things that we can be incredibly proud of, and that will benefit our young people for generations. Thank you all for that work. It was a tremendous amount of work this year, and I am profoundly grateful for it. And with that, I'll ask my fellow board members if they have any comments. Board Member Nichols, and then we have Board Member Castro.
Thank you. Ross, we covered this at the operations work group, but I'm going to ask again just because we're here in a larger setting again. From the April to June budget, as you just mentioned, there was an increase in categorical aid that had been miscalculated from the state. Was it previously?
That's correct.
Okay. And so when we see the increase in revenue and the expenditures, can you just talk at a high level about what's included in the increase on both sides, revenue and expenditures?
Sure. So at this point, we've identified that the percentage reimbursement we have been seeing for special education categorical aid in years past has been improved in this state budget. It'll be important that future state budgets are able to sustain that level of reimbursement so that we can continue to rely on that funding. But at this point, we've identified approximately $3.5 million of additional categorical aid, which is no small amount. After working with the DPI financial consultants on the calculations that we experienced this year, going into next year, I can say that that estimate is much more secure than it was going into this year, which is where we're engaging in that change in the budget. And that is the primary reason why we're able to accomplish an increase from our previous April budget of 2% base wage increase to a 3% increase in the June budget.
Thank you. And then was there also some additional revenue from a TID and then related expenditure?
That's correct. Thank you. In the June budget, I've updated the information to show that we expect the second payment of the closure of TID 25 to be collected next year. We're currently working with the city on when those payments are expected, but they are expected during the next year. And as we discussed earlier this year, I'm going to be asking that we reserve that funding to address information coming out of our referendum expenditures, understanding that inflation is affecting that area as well.
Thank you.
Board Member Castro.
All right, thank you so much. I just have a brief comment about the budget before us. As has been said multiple times tonight, we are experiencing the largest rate of inflation in over 40 years, with a less than 1% increase in a revenue limit formula, a formula that is regressive and does not acknowledge students who experience poverty. And not only does it not acknowledge students that are in poverty, in many ways, it privileges property over people. And in spite of that, in this budget, we've managed some of our largest investments ever in full day 4K and reading and restorative justice, more social workers, more counselors, and more robust mental health partnerships for our students and our staff, and still maintaining a competitive health benefits package. And it is bittersweet that this 3% increase for staff is the largest in MMSD history and does not meet the rate of inflation, but we still managed to fully invest in steps and lanes. So this was not an easy budget final document to get to, and I suspect it may not be final still tonight, as we still have to finalize it in October. But thank you, Ross, so much. And it was hard to manage the short-term and long-term interests of the district financial viability, particularly when we talk about the prospect of deficit spending, which I would argue may do more harm to the Madison community, including our teachers and our students. So that is why I'll be voting for this budget.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you, President Muldrow. I've received some emails asking about this budget and asking specifically about Dr. Jenkins' budget or the board budget. And so I just want to clarify that this budget that we're approving tonight is a collaborative effort between the board and administration that started months ago, right at the beginning of the year. And this is the district's budget to support our public school district, which is a cornerstone of our cities of Madison and Fitchburg. And the budget, by necessity, balances our incoming revenue from local, state, and federal sources with our expenditures and investments for the 2022-23 school year. And like many others have said, this is the second year of the state's biennial budget, which did not include an increase in the revenue limit nor a per pupil funding increase for Wisconsin school districts, meaning that there was no increase to account for the historically high inflation that we're talking about. The increase in revenue authority, like Dr. Jenkins mentioned, in this budget is from the third year of our taxpayer approved operating referendum from 2020. And I would like to acknowledge the support from our Madison taxpayers that has allowed us to move forward on investments that we need to make in our students, our staff, and our schools. And our budget also includes one-time federal funds, COVID funds that are allowing us to invest in surge strategies to also support students, staff, and schools. I'd also like to remind everybody that over 80% of our budget goes towards staffing, and our staff are essential for how our schools and our district operate and for the progress we expect in student learning, in student sense of belonging in our schools, and the unacceptable opportunity gaps we know exist. And the budget provides a 3% base wage increase for staff and fully funded steps and lane increase, which provides an average of 5% wage increase for staff, like many others have mentioned. From my perspective, this budget also focuses our district priorities, and it's really important for supporting students, including the strategic investment in early literacy, the 4K programming, mental health supports, and the many equity and excellence initiatives. And it also maintains fiscal responsibility while we are doing all those things. So I want to thank Ross. I want to thank my fellow board members, Dr. Jenkins, the business team for all the work that has gone into us or gone into this, and also to the community for your input and your feedback that has pushed us to make sure that we are supporting our staff to the greatest extent possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Gomez-Schmidt. I'm sorry, Board Member Simkin and then Board Member Vandermeulen.
Thank you, Board President Muldrow. I want to express frustration over the restrictions that we've had in coming to terms with this budget. I agree with Board Member Vandermeulen that this doesn't represent my values, because my values are strongly in public funding, adequate public funding of education. And we don't have that to work with. And so I think that it has been a balance for each of us to determine how to meet the needs of our staff and our district and make sure that in a couple of years that we still have a district to be running. And again, it's been terribly frustrating to be faced with that. I think this is a time where each of us needs to raise up our voices to our legislature. If we want to have strong public education, it has to be properly funded. And this is the time to make our voice heard. This is not the time for us to be turning against each other. And I know that sometimes feels easier to do, to try to figure out, who's the bad guy in all of this. But I think in this case, we have scarcity. We have scarcity of funding, and together as a community, I think that we can raise our voice and make a difference, because this isn't sustainable. And so I will be voting yes for this budget, because I think it's the best that we could do. And I'm very disappointed to be saying that. I think that the items that we've prioritized, I believe are the most important things that we could, and that we've done our best to do right by our staff. And so I just wanted to share that and say, this is the time, raise your voices to your legislature. This is the time to do it. Thank you.
Board Member Vandermeulen and then Board Member Pearson.
Yes, just want to clarify that we are doing that the proposal is the 3% increase, and that steps and lane is separate, so not everyone would get a 5% increase. I just wanted that to be clear, that not everyone is available for that. Correct, Ross?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that clarification, Nikki.
That is correct.
Board Member Pearson. Yeah, I just wanted to one up what all my fellow board members have mentioned about the difficulty that we've had with this budget cycle. And I wanted to go further and just say, like, as elected officials who are overseeing the district, I feel that it's also our responsibility to also push our state legislature on making sure that we have adequate funding for our schools. But I also think that in the vein of what my colleague Laura said, is that really it comes down to all of us working together and pushing and letting the state legislature know that we're here and we're going to try our best to do what we can for our children and ensure that they come out, because they are the future. They are the ones that are going to be moving forward all the things that we care about and the things that they care about. And they will be hopefully saving our planet and our country. And so I think it's really important that we are working together as a unified team. And that's not necessarily just only the board members or MTI or, but it's really every single person, parents, even our scholars, as little as 4Kers, because really this is what we need to ensure happens for our city. We need to make sure that this is what happens for our state. We need to make sure that this is what happens for our country and the world ultimately. So I say that just to say, at the end of the day, as elected officials, as a community member, as a mother, we just all need to go out there and we really do need to work together and band together and push our state legislature to give us adequate funding in addition to our governor. So I say that I was gonna call out folks, but I won't. But really, let's get this done, and I think we can. But it will take some pushing and some fighting for it. So. Thank you, Board Member Pearson. Board Member Castro.
Sorry, I just have one more comment or call to action for us. I know that we are limited in our ability to do it through a base wage increase, but I do think this board should unilaterally increase the pay of our workers who are making a per hour basis. So I think that's within our power to do in the coming month or two.
Board Member Nichols.
Yes, I just wanted to take a moment to say, in the short time that I've been on the board, April through now, I've been really pleased that we've been able to move the base wage from what was 2% when I got here up to 3%. It's not everything that we know staff deserve and or need. And I want to also express a similar sentiment as my fellow board member, Simkin. It's been challenging to come in and to see how you're projecting out a couple of years and looking at potential restrictions and wanting to take risk, and at the same time wanting to value every single person who is working their tails off right now. It's been really hard. And I will say that although we were not able to get to the 4.7% cost of living adjustment, I know for a fact that this board, I'm not speaking for the board, but I know my colleagues are committed to coming back and looking at our powers around the hourly wage for many of our staff. And so to me, this isn't it's not a done or completed conversation. It's a point in time. And yeah, we will continue to do what we can. We know that retention is so key. Hiring and attracting new folks to our district is key. Compensation doesn't make up for all of that, but we know compensation is critical. So, you know, a hard budget to come in as a new board member, but I just want to extend a lot of heartfelt thank you for just the ongoing process of our staff really asking for what they wanted and needed, and us being able to at least meet them some of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Nichols. Any further discussion? Again, I want to acknowledge that this budget represents a significant investment in 4K, a significant investment in safety, a significant investment in our staff, the largest cost of living increase that we've given folks in over a decade. And it represents all of those things at a time where the investment in public education coming from our state is flat. So again, I want to thank Ross, and I want to bring us to a vote. And because of the seriousness of this vote, I'm going to ask that we have a roll call vote. I keep wanting to say Nama. I'm so used to saying Nama, y'all. Lavinia, your advisory vote.
I give you my vote.
Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Aye.
Board Member Vandermeulen. Board Member Pearson.
Aye.
Board Member Muldrow. Aye. Board Member Nichols.
Aye.
Board Member Castro.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Ali,
Oh, I'm so
I'd like
sorry,
to
Laura.
vote.
Laura, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Board Member Simpkin.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. You're gonna read the next motion.
Got it. So we have a second motion for the budget. I move that the board approve the preliminary tax levies by fund, with the said levy approvals being: 1, for the purpose of enabling short-term borrowing by district during the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year, and 2, subject to modifications by the board prior to November 1st, 2022, in conjunction with certifying the final levy amounts based upon the then current status of the 2022-2023 school district budget, considering such alterations and amendments as may be made prior to levy's certification. Do I need to read the levies? Okay, bear with me with all the levies. Fund 10, general fund, in the amount of $327,254,817. Fund 38, non-referendum, $0. Fund 39, referendum approved debt service, $19,926,000. Fund 41, capital expansion fund, $5 million. Fund 80, community service fund, $14,607,369. Total tax levy of $366,788,186. And this will be updated in October for the final approval.
Second.
Thank you, Sabian.
Lavinia, your advisory vote.
Give you my vote.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion, oh, I'm sorry. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Motion carries 6-1. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in the section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the June 27th, 2022 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen, and pull 1023 and 1024.
Any other separations? All right. Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. All right.
I pulled 1020. May I?
Do you want me to read the motion?
That might help. Sorry.
I move that the Board of Education approve the expenditure in the amount of $330,000 for contracted services of 4AM Consulting to support the strategic framework recalibration to be paid for from the Superintendent's Office FY 2023 budget.
Second.
I'm pulled this and the next one. The reason I pulled them is not that I don't respect the strategic framework, but to explain the reason of my no vote. My no vote on these are because I feel I cannot do that vote for any consultants when I cannot provide full COLA for our staff. And that is the reason I'm voting no on these two. Even though they are excellent proposals, I cannot ethically do so, but I know it will pass, so I am all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that explanation, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any other discussion? Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you, President Muldrow. I'm just wondering if, given the initial proposal was much shorter, this is definitely improved from the last time that I've seen it, with the different phases included. I'm just wondering if someone can give us an explanation of, it does say the scope of the work is to guide a multi-year strategic planning and engagement process, but the funding is for just 1 year at this time. And I know that there are more consultants involved than just the person listed in the memo. So I'm wondering if someone can explain in more detail exactly who's going to be working on the project and sort of the timeline and the phases and how you see it working to support the work we need to do with the strategic framework.
I can have Sharee speak to the contracting piece in terms of the multi-year when I'm done talking through the content, if that is okay. So for this proposal and for this contract, we will be working with 3 individuals, all under the umbrella of 4AM Consulting. That will be Dr. Alicia Moultrie, who has experience with strategic planning in urban settings, Dr. Gail Anderson, who has worked across the nation as well as here in Wisconsin, and really focuses on system work, strategic planning through implementation science. And then our third is Dr. McKinney DeRoyston, who is not only a member of the UW, but is a local community member, a parent, and has deep commitment and involvement here in our community that is going to help us with our engaging of our most historically excluded students and families, so that we are ensuring that we're hearing from all voices as we gather input to really think about how our strategic framework is going to change now after the pandemic. I'll pause to let Sharee answer the budget question for you and see if there's other questions.
So is this a 1-year contract or a 3-year contract? And I'm sorry, and what is the total cost if it's a 3-year contract?
I'm sorry for interrupting. I can't hear Sharee at all. Is there a microphone that you are in front of, Sharee?
Thank you for interrupting, Laura.
Yeah.
I don't, okay, now there it is.
Yes, thank you.
I can repeat what I said so that everyone can hear it. It's a 2-year contract. We've indicated the amount for year 1. The rationale for contracting for 2 years is that we want to let the vendor or contractor know that we're interested in contracting with them over a period of years. We do not approve the funding for multiple years. We approve the funding 1 year at a time. That's to protect the board should something go wrong. And also it gives the board the ability when we come back in the 2nd year to either ask that we adjust the amount or we decide that we are no longer interested in doing that service.
I guess my concern is that it seems to me when you sign a contract for 2 years, like that's the expectation is that you are going to fund it going forward, and not knowing what that amount is really concerns me. And I guess I am, just to clarify, I understand the importance of this work, and I understand the importance of getting the right people to work with us who can guide us through these processes and their different levels of expertise. I guess what I'm not understanding is what are we going to have after the 1st year to allow us to evaluate if we are going to continue, and can we actually at that point say that we're not going to continue with the contract, like legally, can we do that? And my 3rd question is, in which phase will we be after by June of next year?
So I'll answer the second part of your question first. It indicates our commitment, and the contract has a clause that indicates that should the board withdraw funding or for some reason the board does not have the ability to continue with the contract, we will void the contract within 30 days before contract renewal.
Chris, would you like me to answer the other questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we do have a cost for year 2. It is up to $200,000, which is the cost for year 2. And I think Sharee explained the process that we would come back to the board with a consent again for that amount or an adjusted amount based on where we reflect and adjust from year 1. In terms of phases, for year 1, phases 1 through 3 will be in process. 1 and 2 will be complete, and phase 3 we will be partially through. And so year 2 would be a phase 3 and 4. And let me explain what those phases mean to ask your question about deliverables. The first phase for us is really putting together an engagement process extending from the work we started in May and June around our input sessions. We want to ensure that we're doing focus groups with all of our stakeholders. We want to ensure that we're gathering input across our entire community to truly understand what our community believes we need to do to realize our 3 goals and to recalibrate on a strategic framework post-pandemic. So that's the first phase of that. Simultaneously, these consultants are going to be working with a central office leadership team to be training us and to be working side by side so that we can also be understanding some of the capacity building we need to do to take this work on our own. There's a need to have both external and internal people in order to do this work, not just for the engagement process, but for the implementation planning of this. Really focusing on the science, implementation science, and really focusing on how we are building a plan, which is part of the deliverables, a plan, a strategic plan, as well as the indicators of success and the implementation milestones that we will be paying attention to see if we are on track with the plan we set. That will be year one. Year two is really going to be holding us responsible for how we're doing with that plan and where we need to potentially go back out to the community and gather more input and or feedback in terms of our progress to date and make adjustments. The goal is by the end of year two, through the kind of partnership between internal and external, the internal team has built capacity, and we've also stabilized ourselves based on our staffing that we have right now, that we can take on this work for year three, year four, year five, et cetera. Does that answer? I think there were three questions. I just want to make sure I answered all of them.
Yeah, I think so. And that helps to sort of frame it. I guess, again, my question is what are we going to have by, let's say, March or April of next year to decide if we're going to go forward with?
Absolutely. So in terms of artifacts, by October, we'll have some initial data and analysis of what we've heard from our community thus far. And then by April, we will have a new recalibrated strategic framework and an accompanying plan of how we are going to actually implement and realize the goals in the framework. So those will be what we have. And then the board will have opportunities throughout. August, we're going to come to you with some information. October, we'll come to you again with opportunities. And then potentially in the spring also, if needed, for input as well as discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Simpkin.
Thank you. I am concerned about spending $500,000 on this process over the next 2 years, given the financial state of our district. I feel like we just struggled so hard to try to come up with funding for our staff, and to have that much money go to 3 contractors isn't sitting right with me. I understand the need to gather data and to recalibrate, but I'm really struggling with the timing behind this. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to state that out loud.
Thank you so much, Board Member Simpkin. Board Member Vandermeulen.
Very brief question for Sharee. Is there a penalty clause if we cancel the contract after the first year?
No, there's no penalty clause where I actually draft the contracts.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, we will move to a vote. Lavinia, your advisory vote.
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Any abstentions? Any recusals? Motion carries 4-1. All right.
Ellie, I voted no, and Nikki voted no.
And Chris abstained.
4-2. Okay, I was
4, 2, and 1.
Okay, I was thinking of the other kind of 2. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying, Board Member Simpkin. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure in the amount of $150,000 for 1 year of equity work with integrated comprehensive systems equity from the 2022-2023 professional leadership and learning operating budget.
Second.
Second, Board Member Gomez Schmidt. Any discussion? All right. Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Motion carries 6-1.
You got me, right?
City of Madison Education Committee, Board Member Nichols.
Yes, at our June 8th meeting, the committee spent time finalizing our membership. The membership of the committee will now include the addition of 3 students, 1 to be appointed by MMSD, 1 by Dane County, and 1 by the City of Madison. We also decided to invite and add a Fitchburg alder to the committee. And we made a decision that appointed staff from the respective organizations will now be non-voting members. In addition, we confirmed that we will continue with the proposed name of the City County Schools Collaborative Committee. And at this point, we now need to move forward with these changes in the membership and finalizing the name in city ordinance and in our respective organizations. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Board Member Nichols. Lavinia, your report from Student Senate.
The Student Senate meeting was held on June 1st, 2022. We went over the Board of Education report and Emma's reflection speech, Joanna's Board of Education platform speech, my presidential platform speech, Gordon's reflection speech, and the Student Senate end of the year reflection. And we did some committee breakout rooms and reflection. And the date and possible agenda items for the upcoming meetings is to be determined.
Madison School and Community Recreation MSCR Advisory Committee, Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, thank you. We welcomed 5 new members to the MSCR Advisory Committee this past month and provided orientation prior to our June 15th meeting, about a half hour before it. Our summer programs get off to a great start with 14,975 participants, including record numbers of youth soccer and new all-gender softball leagues. There's also a new cohort of students at driver's ed and adult and youth swimming lessons at the Goodman Pool. And there's also wraparound enrichment programs at all elementary and middle school summer semester sites. We're also celebrating the 40th anniversary of our pontoon program, providing access to Madison lakes for everyone for 4 decades. Finally, MSCR hired 881 seasonal staff to work this summer, including 258 high school students.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. The Citizens Ad Hoc Committee to rename Jefferson Middle School, report from the meeting held on June 21st, 2022. Review of public comment submitted to date, deliberation around name proposals scheduled for future meeting. The next meeting is going to take place on June 28th, 2022. Report out from the Safety and Student Wellness Ad Hoc Committee. No meeting has taken place between this regular board meeting and our last regular board meeting. Whereas the Verona Area School District has established a 4-year-old kindergarten 4K programs to serve age-eligible students, whereas the Verona Area High School, whereas the Verona Area School District recognizes the potential educational benefits of providing families with options for 4-year-old programs, as authorized by the Department of Public Instruction to meet the needs of students eligible to participate in 4K programs. It is hereby resolved that pursuant to Section 66.0301 of the Wisconsin statute, the school board of the Verona Area School District agrees to establish and maintain on a cooperative basis 4K programs as set forth in the agreement prepared for the June 27th, 2022 regular meeting for a period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I'm sorry. General Counsel.
It appears a couple words are missing in there. It should say Verona School District agrees to establish and maintain a program in collaboration with the Madison Metropolitan School District.
Do you need us to take any action on this? As it's not a motion, it's a.
You're still voting on it, so if you could include that, we can amend the language as I just read, and I'll make sure that Jesse gets a copy so that the record is clear that we're voting to enter or continue with the collaboration between MMSD and Verona.
Thank you so much, General Counsel Terrell Webb. Board Member Gomez Schmidt, it looks like you wanted to discuss. Am I misinterpreting? I don't have a second, and it didn't read as a motion. It is hereby resolved, or I actually think we can add the portion as Sharee just said it, right? Yeah. So I don't have to say anything.
Right, we can amend it as I stated, and I'll make sure that Jesse has the exact language to reflect.
So all I need to vote on what we just said is 1, to acknowledge the adjustment you just made, and 2, to have a second to bring us to a vote.
Yes.
Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Could you just clarify the adjustment one more time?
Sure.
The language.
We're going to add the words Madison Metropolitan School District, so it'll be the school board of the Verona Area School District agrees to establish and maintain in collaboration with the Madison Metropolitan School District on a cooperative basis 4K programs as set forth in the agreement prepared for the June 27, 2022 regular meeting for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023.
Thank you. I'll second that.
Any discussion? Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education disallow a claim on behalf of an MMSD student under Wisconsin State Statute 893.80 and said claim alleging liability based on negligence by the district and district personnel.
Second.
Second, Board Member Castro. Any discussion? Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve the following dates for summer 2021 meetings. July 25th, regular
2022.
board, I'm sorry?
2022, not 2021.
Oh my gosh, that is a typo. I'm sorry. I'm going to read that again and adjust it, and then we can make that edit after the fact, but thank you so much. I move that the Board of Education approve the following dates for the summer 2022 meetings. July 25th, regular Board of Education meeting, August 1st, instruction work group, August 8th, operation work group, August 8th, special meeting, an open session workshop, August 29th, regular Board of Education meeting.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Any discussion? Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education approve the following Mondays for holding regular board meetings at 6 p.m. over the 2022-2023 school year, July 25th, August 29th, September 19th, October 31st, November 28th, December 19th. 2023, January 30th, February 27th, March 22nd, April 24th, May 22nd, and June 26th.
Second.
Can we come in costume on the 31st?
Absolutely. It's mandated that we come in costume on the 31st, everybody. You're really? Wow.
Oh.
This is outside of the scope of our notice. So we're gonna come back together to vote on this.
Mhm.
I need a second.
I second my person.
Further discussion?
I was just going to ask if we really do want to have a meeting on that date, just checking, just for community participation in our board discussions.
I mean, we the only ones with little kids.
All right.
I'm fine.
I'm fine, but
All right.
No, we're good.
Lavinia, your advisory vote?
You have my vote.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. End of year bonus proposal. I move that the Board of Education approve temporary bonus incentives for staff as set forth in the documents prepared for the June 27th, 2022 regular board meeting using the 2021-2022 Fund 10 general operating budget.
Second.
Second, Board Member Pearson. Any discussion? Board Member Vandermeulen.
yes, actually I'd like to do an amendment. I propose that we use the money, and Ross, you can tell me if this is possible, the money for bonuses, which is $3 million, to change the employee handbook classification for our SCAs and our staff to be funded for the additional $5 an hour that they request.
Thank you for that question. I do want to indicate, though, that the funding we're talking about is one-time funding and cannot be used to do recurring impacts to the employee handbook at this point. So the ability to fund these bonuses is based on the acknowledged vacancies that we've been sustaining all year. And were we to be at full staffing levels, our ability to fund these bonuses would disappear.
In that case, I rescind the motion, but I do wish to make a comment if I may. That is, I believe that the bonuses, our employees will, out of the $1,000, with tax, the highest tax rate, some could get as little as $300 or even less. I'm not sure that's necessarily the best use of our money. But the other thing is, if we're going to do the bonuses, I want to include all of them. That doesn't mean just EAs or SEAs. I want food service. I want all of them. All of our staff that are hourly deserve to be paid what they are worth. And I think that's essential. And that's the reason why I currently am not voting for it.
Ross?
Just a point of clarification, when we discuss bonuses and the authorization to do so, it is true that any payment we make as part of a bonus structure due to payroll law is taxed at the highest rate. But it is important to acknowledge that when you file your taxes at year end on your W-2, all of your earnings are averaged over the year in which you're filing those taxes. So any rate that you're taxed at a higher rate is rebated to you upon completion of your taxes.
Is that the case if you have child support payments, injury payments from an accident, or divorce and alimony payments? Would our workers still see that money?
I'm speaking purely about the tax impact of how bonuses are paid due to payroll law.
I was just saying that you're saying that it would be reimbursed, but not everyone would have it reimbursed, correct?
How do you mean reimbursed?
Reimbursed, to me, reimbursed means you get the money back. In this case, they wouldn't be getting the money necessarily back if it's going to a settlement, correct?
The other impacts that affect how you file your taxes are not what I'm discussing. I'm saying that when you get your W-2 at the end of the year, your total.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That helps.
Board Member Nichols.
Ross, can you describe or explain what it means by all FTE-based eligible staff?
Absolutely. So the reason we chose that qualification in the language is because we did not want to exclude any of our FTE-based staff that are not currently benefits eligible. So in the way this reads, anything that we classify as a full-time equivalency FTE employment that may or may not be above or below the benefits threshold would be incorporated or included in this bonus structure. Under bonus one is what you're referring to, correct?
Okay, so bonus one is, excuse me, you're saying all eligible staff who have been working between January 1st through June 10th,
Correct.
whether or not they received benefits.
Correct.
Okay. so
FTE-based staff with verified employment during that period.
Okay, and then that bonus will be paid no later than July 29th.
Correct.
Then the bonus number two, just to be clear, is a summer school bonus for the Summer Arts Academy staff.
This would be, sorry,
Go ahead.
this would be inclusive of our summer program and our Summer Arts Academy.
Also includes summer semester and Summer Arts Academy.
Correct.
And for that one, is there also like, oh, I see it. There's a criteria of will not have missed more than 2 days during the 30-day summer school period.
Correct.
Okay. And then do you want to say something about bonus number three?
Sure. So bonus three is identification of the bonus structure we adopted on November 19th, 2021, and would retroactively include all C unit employees to receive the month-end bonus of $250 based on the same attendance requirement we set forth at that meeting.
Okay. And that doesn't impact though them also getting bonus number one.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Nichols, I want to thank you so much for those questions. And Ross, I want to thank you for that clarification. I do just want to name that part of the strategy here is reconciling folks who may have been left out of previous bonus structures. And so kind of retroactively compensating folks who have done incredible work over the course of this last year and, you know, didn't receive bonuses initially.
Correct. Under that structure from November 19th. That's accurate.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ross. Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, I had someone email me today who was on pregnancy leave for part of the semester, but worked part of the semester until she could not. She wants to know if she would still be eligible. And also, when I was thinking about it, are people who have resigned or retired still going to be eligible, considering if they worked this year and then retired, will they still be eligible?
Yes and yes.
Board Member Vandermeulen, I have to say, I love that question. My partner took parental leave this year, so good looking out. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for bonus three, can you explain who's included in the unit, the SE unit?
Sure. So the SEE and NUC units include all of our clerical staff, including our technical services staff working out of Doyle, as well as our NUC group, which is a smaller subset of our clerical unit that is not represented, but is still part of our confidential clerical unit for certain staff members in the district.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And can you also for I guess the overall total that isn't included in this memo, and so but it's all of this is covered under the staffing plan for this year.
It is.
And the amount for that. Okay.
So yes, under bonus one, for the $1,000 is going to be approximately $4 million for the staff identified in our first run of this data for year end. For bonus two for summer school, the current estimate based on, again, attendance is still forthcoming, so this is still an estimate. We approximately $250,000 out of the summer school budget. And bonus three would be approximately $400,000 for the retroactive look back. We're currently working with the payroll team to identify everyone affected by this, and that current estimate seems to be holding at this point.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I, again, want to emphasize the fact that this is one-time funding that we have to do this. Looking forward, we are hoping that our staffing is going to be back up to full capacity for the coming school year, and that these funds wouldn't be available going forward.
That is accurate.
Board Member Gomez, or I'm sorry, Board Member Nichols.
Board Member Gomez Schmidt pretty much kind of just reiterated the point, because I feel like what could be happening in the minds of some folks is that we found all this money to do bonuses, and yet we didn't get it into base wage at the highest amount. And so the distinction here is that all of the unfilled positions, school and central office for the entire school year, right? Created,
Correct.
what was that?
Just saying correct.
Yes, created a savings, so to speak, that we had budgeted but then did not spend. And because there is a commitment from the administration as well as the board as a way of saying, thank you for your hard work. It's not the same. We know it's not the same as base wage, but it's still a token of appreciation and recognition for the incredibly challenging year. These dollars then are being rolled into the bonus structure.
That is correct.
Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you. With the level of turnover and vacancies this year, I think this is the least we could do for staff to really just help pay bills. And you know, in the budget conversation earlier, we talked about wanting to avoid a fiscal cliff and to protect the ability of the districts to serve students, staff, and the community in the long term. And had we made some of those other options, that would greatly jeopardize our ability to serve students, staff, and the community in the long term. And so with these one-time savings from vacant positions that we definitely do not want to eliminate, I think this would be a good use of funds. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Castro. Board Member Simpkin.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it's possible to amend bonus 2. I'm a little concerned about the attendance criteria as I'm sitting at home with COVID. I'm wondering if there can be an exception for COVID for, for the employee or one of their dependents.
Board Member Simpkin, who are you addressing your question to?
I think to Ross. Is that who I should be addressing my question to?
You're certainly well within the ability to do those. So it's at the pleasure of the board to entertain that kind of amendment at this point.
Okay, and then I propose that as an amendment that in the case of attendance of missing more than 2 days due to COVID, that the bonus is still can be applied to that employee.
Second to the amendment.
I just have a point of order really quick, because we didn't necessarily state the full document. We just said because of the using the document. Do we actually have to state the actual bonus 2 language to add that amendment into there?
We do.
Okay.
Laura, repeat the language in number 2 with your change without the attendance, and then we can do the second over again.
So Laura, yeah, just read number 2, but add your amendment and just say that you're amending.
Okay. Bonus number 2, provide an end of summer school attendance bonus of $500 for all summer semester and summer arts academy staff. The attendance criteria will be no more than 2 days missed during the 30-day summer school period, with the exception of absence due to COVID of employee or employee's immediate family.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
You have to read the rest, Laura.
The bonus will be distributed after the end of summer school This amount will be paid no later than August 26, 2022. This one-time non-reoccurring bonus is a way to encourage those working summer school.
Now second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Just a clarification, as part of the amendment, excuse me, as part of the amendment, should we be also include or indicating that we can verify positive COVID test as part of this, or are we taking any other measures to verify the reason for the absence, as we've done in the past?
I wasn't going to add that to it.
Okay. Just asking for clarification, as that would involve members of HR and the health services staff to be included in this work.
No.
Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
I'm just wondering how we've handled it with including COVID in the past, because we also don't want to create a staffing crisis for our summer school.
Correct. And that's why I was asking, because I know when we were verifying the COVID leave days this year, we had to work with our health services team and tracker to make sure that those days were accurately represented. So if there's any discussion on that, I just want to make sure we didn't leave that on the table as we were part of having this discussion.
Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, we aren't dealing with children. We're dealing with teachers who are working and hardworking adults. I think we can trust them.
I am going to recuse myself from this vote because of my conflict of interest. And so any further conversation we have at this point is going to be facilitated through Board Chair Maya Pearson.
Sharee, you were looking like you wanted to say something? No? Okay. Go ahead, Board Member Nichols.
Board Member Simkin, one clarification. In your amendment language, you included, with the exception of a positive COVID test for the employee or the employee's, I think you said immediate family.
Yeah. So I have to say I'm working through a COVID brain here, so I can accept suggestions if I'm off track. My thought is that the bonuses are a way to make sure that our staff can better take care of themselves. And part of that is being able to take care of their families.
I see what you're saying. So the intention of your amendment is to try to preserve that summer school staff would still be eligible for the bonus and not be unnecessarily penalized, so to speak, if they were to come up with COVID during the summer.
Exactly.
Board Member Castro.
I'm wondering if we want to amend the language from immediate family member to household member. As family member could be restrictive of individuals under the care in a household.
Yes, that's better language. Thank you.
So it sounds like Board Member Simkin accepts that to use the language of household members instead of immediate. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Can we get some additional clarification from staff who would be involved in I guess maybe HR in if we do positive COVID test versus?
But it's not in the motion.
I guess I'd like to know that because I may amend that motion again if that is an issue, but I'd like to hear that from staff as to what complicating factors there may be with that.
And if I may, I think it is relevant to understand the implications for additional staff work.
I guess that would be pointed towards any staff member.
Tracy, Dr. Jenkins, or Ms. Terrell Webb? Implications of positive COVID tests. Maybe that's Dr. Esser. Whoever would like to address that.
Thank you for coming to the stage, Dr. Esser. Can you turn on your mic, please?
Fabulous. Okay, so this is complex because there are multiple factors that could lead to an employee not being able to report to work as a result of COVID, whether that's being a close contact and they're not vaccinated or not being boosted. And I will just be really honest that my current, like, I can't speak to every implication from the symptom screener essentially, but what I anticipate is you will have people who have symptoms that don't test positive but can't come to work. I also suspect you will have households that are rather large, and COVID can go through a household and then take it down for an incredible amount of time as it works through a family. So I think it will be complex to sort of ascertain what would qualify or not. And I think the board would need to decide if anything COVID related is, would be included or only a COVID positive test for an employee or a household member would be included. The other thing I would just say, I don't think it would be terribly hard to track the information and being able to say, was this person, you know, if we have an attendance list, was this person COVID positive or were they impacted by COVID, provided they do the symptom screening as they're supposed to. So we do have access to that information. I think the challenge will be just determining whether or not the focus should be on COVID positive or COVID implications overall. That help?
No. I respect the answer.
Does explain the complexity for
sure.
I wasn't trying to be rude or flip, but it ended up being, it's just a very important gesture and a very complicated answer. More complicated than I was ready to deal with at said time. So please forgive me if you took that as offense. It was not meant at you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Chris? Sort of, or?
No, it does. I'm just not sure how to proceed. Again, you know, my concern is 30 days and not creating a situation where, I mean, obviously those staff, we're going to be missing them if they're COVID positive or COVID. I mean, it's more about the, how we manage if we put that into a proposal to be considered, I guess, process wise.
Thank you, Chris. Board member.
Can we call the question?
I think, yeah, we can call the question in a second. I want to give Laura just a chance to, board member Simpkin, to speak.
Yeah, I'm in favor of using the loosest possible interpretation of COVID in this situation. I think it is important that we have confidence in our staff to, you know, if they've committed to summer school, to know that they're gonna work if they can. I just think it's like a double whammy if you have to take off of work for COVID, and then in addition to that, you miss a bonus because of that.
Thank you. Board member Castro, and then we'll take a vote.
Yeah, thank you. We also have the district screener too anyway, which will tell them to stay home. So I'm in favor of just voting for this and approving it. Thank you.
I have a quick Ross question.
Okay, go ahead, Nikki, and then we'll really call the question for real.
Okay. Ross, would those who worked extended school year, like in special ed, be able to get the bonuses? Does that affect them as well? I just thought of it.
No, it does not. ESY has a different pay structure. It's based on their contract rate, which is not included in this.
Okay, let's call this vote. Okay, Lavinia, your advisory vote.
You have my vote.
Thank you. All in favor for the amendment proposed? Okay, we have 6 and 0 and a 1 for Ali's abstention.
Recusal.
Or
So it
recusal,
doesn't count
sorry.
at all.
Doesn't count.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Don't we need to vote on we have to vote on the actual motion, right? Yeah. Not just the amendment?
Do we have to?
Amendment?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just kidding. Okay, so just as a process wise, we voted on the amendment, but now we have to vote on the full item. Okay. Please bear with me. Okay, okay. So I move that the Board of Education approve the temporary bonus incentives for staff as set forth in the document prepared for the June 27th, 2022 regular meeting using the 2021-22 Fund 10 General Operating Budget with amendments previously voted for on bonus 2.
Second.
Thank you, Sabian. Lavinia, your advisory vote if you're still there.
You have my vote.
Okay, great. Thank you. All those in favor of
Aye.
this?
I'm
Your name?
one of the amendments.
I'm not sure who's playing music, but that vote is 6-1. Or actually, sorry, 5-1, and then a recusal. Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry. Lavinia, your advisory vote.
You have my vote.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Good evening, everybody.
I have no idea.